Rejoice, ye penny-pinching nerds, rejoice! For this is a season unbound by our bank accounts, unfettered by fees. A legendary age of liberty. This is the Summer of Free! Hey guys, Pater Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. We are now continuing our celebration of the Summer of Free 2020 with each installment in this series. This summer anyway, I'm recommending at least one or two movies and one or two free tabletop games that you can enjoy for free. In the case of the print and play tabletop games, you will need a printer and some paper, of course, but everything else you'll just need internet access for the most part. So the first up, I want to talk about the movies, and the theme I think for this time seems to be cool movies that I never reviewed for one reason or another. And the first one is available over at voodoo.com, and it's called Infini. And the description reads, a search and rescue team are transported through deep space to a distant mining colony to save the sole survivor of a biological outbreak. During their mission, they find a lethal weapon which is set to arrive on Earth within the hour. Now, that doesn't tell you a lot, so I'll just say that stylistically, this definitely is channeling some vibes from the movie Event Horizon. It's not jacked up and kind of like Lovecraftian in the way that Event Horizon is, but it has some of those kind of ominous space horror. I mean, it's a space horror movie, space sci-fi horror, and it has some visual vibes in common, I think, with some of the way they use lighting and set design in Event Horizon. It also has kind of a body horror and John Carpenter's The Thing kind of vibe, where they're coming across, as they did in Event Horizon, I guess, as well, this crew that something horrible happened to them, and some kind of infectious thing, some kind of body horror thing that was transforming them and making them crazy and making them do bad things and stuff. And so if a mashup between John Carpenter's The Thing and Event Horizon that's like this sci-fi space horror experience sounds appealing to you, I think this is worth checking out. You know, on a lot of these streaming sites that offer free content, you can find, you know, sci-fi horror movies that are just a dime a dozen, many of them cheaply made, but this one is an easy to miss, you know, not big blockbuster budget type of movie that I was really pleased with how well it was made, given the budgetary constraints and given the fact that it was such so under the radar of so many other movies. And so anyway, Infini is one that I would recommend, and is still kind of on my bucket list as one that, like, yeah, I need to buy that and just add that to my Blu-ray library. The next one, also available over at voodoo.com, is called Dark City. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Came out in 1998. I want to say, do not read any plot synopses or premises that are available. Don't read any descriptions of what this movie is about before watching it. Instead, just go watch the trailer that was put out for this movie to promote it before its release. It doesn't say a lot. There's not a lot of voiceover. You don't actually hear any dialogue from any characters, and that's really the best way to enter into this movie, is just kind of seeing some of the visual things, seeing some events that will, you know, just flashes of events that will happen during the movie, but not knowing their context or what's going on. That trailer, I think, can give you a good idea of whether or not this is likely to be a movie that you'll find interesting or enjoyable, and it leaves all the plot information out. And I think that's the best way to enjoy this movie, is to just be surprised as it unfolds, because it's really a sci-fi mystery with certainly some noir kind of vibes to it, very gothic kind of feel to it. It's directed by Alex Proyas, who famously directed The Crow. I've certainly not enjoyed all of his movies, but this one I really enjoyed. And I'm not alone in that. Roger Ebert, if I'm not mistaken, made this his movie of the year in 1998, and also provided a commentary track on the DVD and Blu-ray. So he really kind of assigned himself to this movie, and really enjoyed it a lot. And it's got a well-known cast. You may not know the name Rufus Sewell, but you're likely to recognize his face. Kiefer Sutherland is a supporting actor, Jennifer Connelly a supporting actor, William Hurt a supporting actor. So it just has a great stylistic vibe to it. If you like dark sci-fi that has to do with questioning what's real and what's not, and has some cool supernatural sci-fi happenings, again, just watch that trailer and I think that'll give you an idea of whether or not this is going to be the thing for you. There are some content concerns, as you know, with all these movies that I'm talking about. I want to recommend that you go over to imdb.com and look at the parental guide to get a blow-by-blow of some of the things that you can expect, so you know whether or not this is the movie for you and to watch with your family or friends or whatever. So anyway, but one of my favorite movies of all time, Dark City, available to watch for free at vudu.com. The last one over at vudu.com is Equilibrium. This is likewise one of my favorite movies, I think I would say. Not quite up there with Dark City in my mind, but still like one that I'm so glad I have in my collection. I've watched many, many times over the years. This came out in 2002, certainly is inspired by The Matrix. The plot synopsis on voodoo.com says, in an attempt to end wars and maintain peace, mankind has outlawed the things that trigger emotion, literature, music, and art. To uphold the law, a special breed of police is assigned to eliminate all transgressors. But when the top enforcer misses a dose of an emotional blocking drug, he begins to realize that things are not as they seem. Before I forget, just reading the premise reminded me that Dark City also, one thing that I'm a fan of, sorry I'm doing this out of order, it kind of stands in defiance a bit of naturalism and upholds the reality of a non-physical component to humans, the soul. And it does it in a subtle way, but that's an interesting kind of like potential talking point after watching Dark City. Coming back to Equilibrium, though, the talking point for this one is emotion and what the role of emotion is. And I've described emotion before as a dangerous treasure that we as humans have. And we don't want to say it's not valuable and we need to avoid it and we need to leave emotion out of our lives, but neither do we want emotion to be controlling us. And so I think Equilibrium, even though it maybe leans a bit on the side of emotion is really, really valuable, it also shows, you know, the potential downside of emotion, certainly by the downside of being led around by our emotions. And so some great talking points there, but really this movie is most enjoyable for its style and its concept. As I said, it was inspired by The Matrix. It has kind of a mix of gunplay and martial arts. But separate from The Matrix, it actually blends those two together. So it has a martial art concept that they don't call gun fu, but I think Equilibrium kind of was the first to pioneer that concept of really combining simultaneously hand-to-hand combat and firearm combat at the same time. And it's a really interesting concept. This movie is, you know, clearly limited in budget compared to The Matrix, and one reason I think that maybe a lot of people dismiss it is on the cover to the DVD it says, forget The Matrix, this movie will blow you away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just riding the coattails of The Matrix, trying to use that to get people's attention. It's certainly, you know, anytime a movie says something outrageous like that, it's going to be really disappointing. So no, it's not going to blow you away and you're not going to forget The Matrix. But if you like The Matrix, there's things you'll probably enjoy in this one. It's playing around with philosophical ideas a little bit, and it has a very stylized kind of action, a stylized approach to action. It's about a dystopian future, and it uses its budget well. It uses its budget in a creative and stylistic way. On top of that, it stars Christian Bale, and this is before he played Batman. And when I saw this movie, I said to myself, gosh, this guy would make a really good Batman. And I kid you not, it was weeks or months after I saw this movie that they announced that Christian Bale was cast in a Batman franchise reboot. And so, anyway, a number of good reasons, I think, to check out Equilibrium. All right, the last movie I'm going to mention is Ultraviolet. Now, if you like Equilibrium a lot, and you want more from that director, Ultraviolet was the next movie that director made. I don't think it's near as good as Equilibrium, but if you want more of that kind of that style, there are stylistic overlaps going on between the two movies. Now, Ultraviolet was made, I think it came out, I want to say 2006. Yeah, 2006. The description on IMDb says a beautiful hemophage infected with a virus that gives her superhuman powers has to protect a boy in a futuristic world who is thought to be carrying antigens that would destroy all hemophages. What the crap are they even talking about? Well, you could find out when you watch the movie, but again, this is another one where you can watch the trailer and get an idea if it's going to be for you or not. 2006 was, the early 2000s was a time when we had movies like Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, 300, I believe, came out the same year as Ultraviolet. We had movies that were really leveraging green screens, and entire movies were being filmed without proper sets, but just in front of green screens. And Ultraviolet is part of that stylistic tradition. It's not exclusively shot in front of a green screen, but a ton of it is. It uses really strongly saturated colors and contrasts to give it kind of a, what they were probably going for is kind of a comic book type of vibe. This was a style of filmmaking that was basically saying, look, we know that the sets and the backgrounds are not going to look real, and the sets are not going to look real. That's not our concern here. We're going for a striking visual aesthetic. And so if you look at the trailer and are interested in the visual aesthetic, you're interested in how they might show certain, how they might stylistically display action in a movie, and you're not concerned about it looking realistic, then I think there's definitely things to really enjoy. Ultraviolet has a bigger budget than Equilibrium, I believe, and puts that budget to work more. And it's stylist. It's shooting for style in the same way that The Matrix was shooting for style. It's a different style, and it's doesn't have as much money thrown at it. But if you like stylized action and interesting sci-fi concepts that are integral to that action, then you might enjoy sitting down and watching Ultraviolet. I don't think you're going to watch it for the script, for the story structure, for the dialogue, for the acting, for the characterization. Ultraviolet is one you sit down and watch specifically for the visual style and the sci-fi concepts that are involved in that. So, and if you're interested in that, check out the trailer. You might find that Ultraviolet is a really nice use of a Saturday night. Just crank up the home theater and enjoy what you can from it. All right, so those are my movie recommendations. Now let's look at some tabletop stuff. The first tabletop game I want to recommend, available at BoardGameGeek.com, is called Mini Rogue. And Mini Rogue is described as a micro game profoundly inspired by roguelikes and role-playing games. Monsters, hazards, treasures, bosses, dungeons, random rooms, and encounters are all featured in Mini Rogue. In this solitaire game, you play as an adventurer that delves into a dungeon room after room, area after area, level after level to loot the Og's Blood, a fabled and mysterious ruby gemstone. Each area of the dungeon is laid out as a branching of rooms. Each time you face two rooms, you'll have to choose one. You will resolve each encounter by rolling dice and decide on how to pursue the adventure. In each room, you may encounter a monster, find a treasure, discover a resting area, meet a merchant, dodge traps, or face other surprising events. Each level ends with a powerful boss monster that you'll have to defeat to continue on to the next level. You win the game if you can reach the last room of the dungeon and defeat the final boss monster. So just like that, you know, classic essential game with all those core dungeon crawl elements. So yeah, that's Mini Rogue. It doesn't have much to print out, just a few pages, and it has an art style that's simplistic, kind of what you would expect from maybe like a Flash animated video game, or it reminds me a little bit of Samurai, the old animated series Samurai Jack, but it really still looks nice and professional considering that it's this free print and play game. So anyway, that is Mini Rogue. And then the second game I'm going to mention is Utopia Engine, also available at BoardGameGeek.com. Utopia Engine, the description reads, is a free print-and-play dice game for one player. You play an old artificer named Isidorus, who is attempting to reconstruct the Utopia engine, a fabled device from the distant past, and possibly the only hope for averting the fast-approaching doomsday. You must recover the machine's 6 parts from 6 dangerous regions and assemble the Utopia engine before the world ends. The game uses simple dice mechanics to simulate searching the wilderness, activating and assembling powerful artifacts, and combat with artifact weapons. It requires a printed playsheet, 2 6-sided dice, and a pencil with an eraser. It's got a nice visual style to it. There are, it looks like, 3 pages that you'll need to print out at the very least, to kind of keep track of your progress in the game. And it's all black and white, so it's not going to be, it's not going to demand as much of your printer as, say, Mini Rogue will if you decide you want to print things out in color. And because it has this pencil and ink type of style, this hand-drawn kind of style to it, I think that really helps it work well when it's black and white. It feels appropriate. It feels like it's kind of like this older, ancient type of vibe, or like an old-school D&D type of vibe. So I really like a pairing of black and white coloring with that hand-drawn aesthetic. And so I really like the look of this game. And in the rules, there's an interesting quote. Let's see here. Where's this quote? Here it is. It says, recovering the Utopia... This is just like thematic flavor text. Recovering the Utopia engine is the single most important endeavor of our lives. Imagine a device able to rid the world forever of thievery, murder, and war. It will create a perfect society, and we will finally be able to attain the same greatness as the ancients. And so I haven't played this game myself, but some of the ways that they talk about the concept and the premise for the game makes me wonder if there might be some interesting thoughts that could be brought about by playing a game like this, thinking, okay, what's their take on Utopia? And do you find that out as you play the game? Is it possible for humans to create Utopia ourselves? If we were to try to do that, what would we prioritize? What would be the result of those kinds of efforts? So anyway, possibly some interesting talking points or thinking points. This is, I think, like a solitaire game. Yeah, it's a one-player game, so maybe not talking points with anybody else, but maybe some interesting things to think about. And if you find that you enjoy Utopia Engine, well, first I should mention there is the option, there's a player-created color version of the playmat that you can print out. Personally, I don't like it as much. It has kind of a computer-generated look to it, and I don't like the aesthetic as much as the black and white hand-drawn stuff. But if you want to go that route, there is a color play sheet available for you to download and print out. Anyway, if you like Utopia Engine, there's a sequel to this one called Utopia Engine Beast Hunter that you can also check out. And there's a nice review by Marco Omnigamer on YouTube. Just search Marco Omnigamer, one word, and his review for Utopia Engine is available to give you an idea of how the game plays. Anyway, that's all I have to share, but hopefully that's enough to give you a little bit of free entertainment so you can better manage the resources that God has given you. Stay tuned. I'll come back with another, what do you call this, segment or a round or whatever of Summer Free 2020 in a few more weeks. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening.